Hello and welcome to the Literary Lair. I think it's fairly obvious at this point that I love Doctor Who. A fact that you might not know is that my favorite Doctor is Patrick Troughton's second Doctor, which you may have noticed since I've done 3 videos where I've talked about his Doctor, as opposed to every other Doctor getting only 1 or 2. I don't know why I love the second Doctor so much. Maybe it's because we have similar hairstyles. Maybe it's because Patrick Troughton is such an amazing actor. But regardless, that's where my allegiance lies. Now, I haven't seen all of his episodes, since a good chunk of them are missing. But of his completed stories, I love them all. Well, almost. I know every Doctor has his bad episodes, but Patrick Troughton doesn't really have that many of them. I mean, Enemy of the World, The Mind Robber, Power of the Daleks, The Web of Fear, Tomb of the Cybermen. I could go on and on listing the classics from his tenure for hours. But there is one episode that I sort of wish was one of the missing episodes. The Dominators, which came smack dab between The Wheel in Space, which introduced Zoe Harriet, played by Wendy Padbury, and The Mind Robber, which is one of my favorite episodes of Troughton's run. It's not a good episode. It's slow, boring, and unfortunately the effects don't look as amazing as they probably sounded in the script. And it was basically disowned by its writers, who also wrote The Abominable Snowman and The Web of Fear, and are responsible for creating Colonel Alistair Gordon Lethbridge Stewart. But maybe it just wasn't right for the visual medium. Of course, like a lot of Doctor Who episodes, this one was novelized by Target Books, by the late Ian Marter, who you may recognize as poor, dumb Harry Sullivan, who was the 4th Doctor's companion during his first season. So we have a story betrayed by the visual medium. Does it work better as a book? Does it, having been novelized by someone who actually traveled in the TARDIS, albeit with a different incarnation, make it trump the broadcasted episode and turn a crappy story into a good one? Let's find out. This is The Dominators. Also, I know that I normally reserve the Target books for the anniversaries, but if I waited for the second Doctor to show up again naturally, the earliest I'd be looking at this would be 2022. So I'm just going to do it now. Plus, this times pretty well with not only the anniversary of Doctor Who, but also the cinematic release of the reconstructed Power of the Daleks. Let's do this. The cover is bleh. I've got to give it to the book. It looks more interesting than the re-released Target novels. Okay, what do we have here? We've got the title and the Doctor Who neon tube logo that accompanied the 4th through 6th Doctors up on top, with The Dominators in blocky text under it, which is interesting because this is the first Target novelization we're looking at that doesn't use the Doctor Who and the X naming scheme. The cover's primary focus is on a giant quark that looks like a plastic storage crate with table legs screwed into the front, and a weird spiky fistbowl on top. And then there's Dominator Rhaego in the front, glaring at something off-screen. Fun fact, Rhaego was played by Ronald Allen, who also played Director Cornish in the 3rd Doctor story, The Ambassadors of Death. And we've also got a smaller quark using a device that looks like a giant tissue compression eliminator. The cover is sort of interesting, but it doesn't exactly tell us a lot about the story or have the Doctor on it at all, so it's pretty weak. Let's get to the story. The story opens up with Rhaego and Toba, the titular Dominators, landing on the planet Dulcus and onto an island covered in nuclear fallout, and they start removing the fallout to fuel their spaceship. This happens as Cully, a Dulcian, is leading an illegal tour to the Island of Death, bringing some youths there to make some money off of them. They land, and Cully is very confused, as his instruments don't seem to be working properly, as they say that the island is perfectly safe, and the youths rush outside, as they think that Cully has lied to them, while Cully is confused as to why the island isn't emitting radiation, like it has for hundreds of years. He rushes out after them as Toba notices the youths running around, and sends the Quark after them to kill them. The youths are killed, and only Cully escapes, running back towards the ship. And, of course, this is when the Doctor shows up. They walk out of the TARDIS, and the Doctor tells Jamie and Zoe that Dulcus is the most peaceful planet he's ever visited. Which is why, right after he says that, there's an explosion, and they go off in search of what happened, finding a pile of rubble in a building. However, the Doctor says that the building wasn't part of the explosion, as it happened several years ago, likely the result of an atomic weapon. The Doctor decides to head back to the TARDIS, but before they can go, they're confronted by three beings in EV suits. Rhaego is pissed at Toba, since using the quarks to kill the Dulcians wasted vital energy, and they come across the TARDIS, which Toba also wants to destroy. Rhaego doesn't let him, which is good, because Cully was hiding behind it. Meanwhile, the Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe end up being taken into the research center of Balin, a teacher from the mainland of Dulcia, who is confused, as they are, about the lack of radiation on the island. The Doctor questions all of that, since the Dulcus he knows was peaceful, but Balin and his students tell him that Dulcus is peaceful, and this island is where they put all their weapons and bombs and destroyed them, so that no one could ever use them. But, of course, the Doctor should know that, since Balin doesn't believe that they're aliens. Cully shows up, telling Balin that he brought 3 people to the island that were killed by robots, but Balin, of course, assumes that his 3 people are the Doctor, Jamie, and Zoe, despite the objections of all 4 of them. Cully says they have to leave at once before the robots get them, but Balin is a little slow to the take, and so he wants to finish his work. Cully warns about a spaceship, and the Doctor asks if he means a large wooden box. But Cully says that the spaceship he saw was a silvery spear, though he overheard the aliens talking about destroying the wooden box, which alarms the Doctor. He wants to go back to check on it, but Zoe wants to stay behind for some reason, and the Doctor and Jamie go out to secure the TARDIS. Balin contacts the director of the Dulcian government, and the Doctor and Jamie are confronted by 2 quarks. They're captured by Rhaego and Toba, who scan Jamie and figure that the Doctor is the same, so they don't bother to scan him to save power, and decide that they'll be of use for labor after they take an intelligence test. Toba begins the test, but the Doctor plays dumb, and despite the fact that the test is that shape-and-hole game that toddlers play with, the Doctor feigns inability, since he knows if they fail the test, they'll be underestimated. Jamie plays along, and Rhaego comes in for the final test. Zoe and Cully are brought before the Council, and he tries to tell them of the danger and that Zoe is an alien, but naturally they don't listen. You see, Dulcus's science committee had disproved the existence of aliens. Not conclusively, but not all of the members of the government are all that knowledgeable about science. Director Senex, Cully's father, speaks with them alone, and he is not pleased, and not at all interested in his story about aliens and robots, despite Zoe trying to corroborate it. Rhaego takes the Doctor and Jamie to the museum and hands them a laser pistol, and orders Jamie to use it. The Doctor tells him that he doesn't know how, and Rhaego takes the gun and puts it to the Doctor's head, firing it. But it was in safety mode, so it doesn't vaporize his brain. Rhaego tells Toba that the Doctor and Jamie are primitives and of no threat, and neither are the Dulcians, as they're pacifists. Toba still wants to kill them, but Rhaego overrules, since they could be useful for labor later. The Doctor and Jamie escape back to Balin's capsule, as Balin tells his students that since the radiation from a bomb detonated 172 years ago has suddenly dissipated, that means that the lifespan of the radiation from the bomb is 172 years. I'd use the "of course, don't you know anything about science" joke from atop the 4th wall, but I don't think anyone on this planet knows anything about science. Oh my giddy aunt. We'll be right back. And we're back. Would you like to hear a song? Baylan and his crew go out to study and are detected by Rego and Toba, and Baylan still is in denial about the aliens, despite being face-to-face with the alien craft. That is, until the Quarks attack them and use molecular adhesion to capture them. Cully and Zoe return to the island, and upon arrival, the transport capsule is destroyed by the Quarks, and they're captured by Toba. The Doctor and Jamie meet with Senex, but that doesn't accomplish much because the Dulcian government seems incapable of changing their peaceful ways to take on a race that seems bent on destroying them all. Senex attempts to contact Baylan, but he just gets footage from a camera showing a Quark and the remains of the lab, and the Doctor and Jamie rush to another transport capsule to return to save Zoe, as Senex informs them that she and Cully went back to the island. Zoe and Cully are taken to the other prisoners, and Zoe wants to revolt, though Baylan thinks that submission is the better idea. They eventually band together, and Zoe pretends to faint to distract the Quarks, and then she slips away to get the laser gun from the remains of the museum. Cully gets the gun, and all the prisoners begin to collapse out of exhaustion, and Cully prepares to follow on the Quarks before being stopped by Jamie, who is worried for Zoe's safety. The Doctor is recaptured by the Dominators, and Jamie and Cully wait for an opening to attack the Quarks. They're trapped under the wreckage of the museum, and Rego demands that the Doctor direct them to the capital so he can meet with Director Senex. He leaves Toba in charge, though he directs him not to cause any further destruction. I give Toba about 5 minutes before he goes all Kylo Ren and destroys something. Jamie and Cully lose the gun in the wreckage, but Jamie doesn't need it and decides to attack the Quarks the way that he and the clan McCrimmon attack the Redcoats, by tossing a heavy stone down a hill and crushing them. Rego meets with Senex, who tries to negotiate, but Rego is only interested in getting the strongest of the Dulcians to be slaves, saying that they'll be saved, though he doesn't say from what, as the Doctor and Zoe try to figure out what Rego and Toba are mining for on Dulcus. As Jamie and Cully destroy more Quarks, Toba takes some out to go after them and leaves the Doctor and Zoe alone in their spaceship. The Doctor discovers that the Dominator's ship is the reason for the lack of radiation on the island, as it runs on a power source that absorbs radiation and turns it into useful energy, though he still can't figure out what they're mining for. Toba and his army of Quarks get to where Jamie and Cully are, and Toba interrogates the other prisoners, as he assumes they know where Jamie is. Toba takes Baylan back to the ship, and the Doctor asks him why the Dominators would mine on the island, and Baylan says that the crust is very thin there. The Doctor realizes that they're after magma for some reason, and Toba asks them where Jamie is, before killing Baylan when no one responds. He then turns his sights on the Doctor, but before he can kill them, Rego returns, obviously outraged at Toba's disregard for his instructions. Rego is pissed that they're behind schedule because Toba reallocated Quarks to capture the prisoners, and Rego tells him that he's got one more strike till he's out. Jamie and Cully manage to distract the Quarks to help the prisoners escape, and Toba wants to go after them, but Rego says that they're unsuitable to be slaves and so will die with their planet. The Doctor, Jamie, Zoe, and the Dulcians get their information together, and the Doctor tells them that the Dominators are going to drop a seeding device into the planet's core to turn it into a giant radioactive power source. However, the Doctor has no idea how to stop them from dropping it. Jamie comes up with an idea, where they dig a hole down lower than they're dropping it, and catch the seeding device on the way down. An idea so ridiculous and cheesy that they're totally gonna do it, aren't they? Yeah. They get to digging, and the Doctor destroys a piece of wall using his sonic screwdriver, this episode being the second appearance of the device on television, and they start their plans as Toba and Rego start theirs. The Doctor uses medical kits to create bombs that they can use against the Quarks, and Rego decides to take care of the primitive Dulcians himself. He wounds Cully and Jamie, and they get back to the tunnel right as they break through, and the Doctor manages to catch the device, though he can't defuse it, so he has to dispose of it somehow before it explodes, taking out the entire planet and has to get it far away.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
He sends Jamie and Zoe back to the TARDIS to wait for him and for the Dulcians to take a transport back to their capital. Rego and Toba fly their ship away from the planet when Toba is distracted by something emerging from an elevator with their remaining Quarks. Rego doesn't understand until he turns around, seeing that inside the elevator is the seeding device which is about to explode. He tells Toba to abandon ship, but it's too late and the ship explodes as the Doctor returns to the TARDIS, telling Jamie and Zoe to get inside, as the mining did cause a volcano to form on the island, demonstrated as lava flows toward the TARDIS, setting them off on the beginning of their adventure in the land of fiction as the story ends. And that was The Dominators. Was it better than the episode? Not really, it's about the same. I mean, the book does have the advantage of not needing effects, but the real issues with the story is, well, the story. It's weak. It was weak on TV and weak in novelized form. The fact that Rhaego continues to let Toba do stuff, despite the fact that Toba just doesn't know how to follow orders, it's like those Tumblr posts where it's like, X no, X yes. Except instead of it being funny, it's stupid. The Dulcians are idiots, especially the Council and Balin. I mean, they don't even entertain the idea that their world is in danger, despite it staring them in the goddamn face. Plus, I get that aliens are a tough pill to swallow, but at least send someone to check on Cully's story, and it's just so tedious. I started this review off by saying that I like Troughton, but god damn it, this was a slog. I really just didn't want to read it, especially when I own two way better Troughton novelizations. Even Ian Marter couldn't save it. The only thing that this has going for it is that it features an early use of the sonic screwdriver. This is definitely the worst episode of Troughton's run, and the worst novelization that I've read so far. It's a shame that this kicked off Troughton's final season, because it starts out much like Tom Baker's final season, with a mediocre episode. Though admittedly, The Leisure Hive is a much better episode than this. I can't really recommend this book. There are better novelizations out there, and aside from this episode leading directly into the opening of The Mind Robber, there's really no reason to read or watch this story, and the latter story can be enjoyed without knowing the particulars as to why they were sitting near an active volcano. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more of The Literary Lair, you can hit that subscribe button. And if you have any comments or complaints about the video, you can put those in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, show it to your friends and share it around the internet. And maybe consider supporting the show on Patreon. See you next time. I've got to go see the reconstruction of Power of the Daleks.